Philadelphia might not need to go ahead and sign Odell Beckham Jr., but they might need to sign him to keep him away from some of these other football teams we're going to talk about that apparently are interested in the OBJ sweepstakes. What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome into the Thomas Mott Show on a Thursday, getting you ready for Eagles-Texans this evening. We'll talk more about that here a little bit later on, but I think it's very important post-trade deadline to dive into OBJ. There's one prize left for NFL teams potentially bring onto their football team and really bolster their chances at making a deep run to the playoffs and then maybe a Super Bowl run, and Philadelphia needs to be in on the sweepstakes. I'm going to go ahead and explain why. OBJ is going to get signed very, very soon, and the reports and rumors are saying Bills or Cowboys or Niners or Rams, all of those teams are legit threats to Philadelphia, and I think Philadelphia needs to jump in on the OBJ sweepstakes as quickly as possible. Let's start with the New York Post article here explaining the current state of the OBJ sweepstakes. Quote, all eyes on Odell Beckham as the post-NFL trade deadline prize. It's almost OBJ o'clock, they say. The NFL trade deadline has come and gone, and now the dust has settled. Odell Beckham Jr. looms as the biggest potential difference maker who is available to push a contender over the top. The Bills, who are current Super Bowl favorites at 230, are one of team Beckham Jr. has been flirting with. On Wednesday, Buffalo GM Brandon Beane said that, of course, the team would look into signing him, and it would go on to say, of course, that OBJ tore his ACL during the Rams Super Bowl victory in February, and goes on to also mention that the Cowboys owner Jerry Jones said last week that Beckham Jr. is, quote, a player that I admire a lot. The Niners are also considered to be in the mix, end quote. And so you're saying, Thomas, the Eagles weren't mentioned in this article. You're right. The Eagles have not been officially tied to Odell Beckham Jr. as of today, which is, November 3rd. However, did you see the list of teams that have been tied to OBJ? Buffalo, Dallas, San Francisco, and the Rams have all been mentioned as serious contenders right now to sign OBJ, and all of those are going to be, minus maybe the Rams, teams you're going to have to either beat in the playoffs on your way to a Super Bowl, or, in the Bills' case, play in a Super Bowl and have to match up and beat. And so when you look at the list of the current odds of where these teams, or who these teams are that could sign OBJ, the first argument for the Eagles even going after him is to take him away from the Rams at plus 200, the Bills at plus 225 according to DraftKings, the Buccaneers at plus 550, Chargers, Packers, Chiefs, Giants, Ravens, Cowboys, Niners are all ahead of Philadelphia. You see them there at plus 4,000 to sign him. If Philadelphia wants to continue to be one of the top teams in the National Football League, not only did they need to make moves at the trade deadline, they did that with Robert Quinn, they also need to make sure that other teams don't get serious prizes. Philadelphia is stacked right now defensively. They match up well against anybody. But put OBJ on the Buffalo Bills, and you have three legit wide receivers to defend versus just two in Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. Now, I like Avonte Maddox. I think Avonte Maddox is very, very good, but at the same time, you would like to think that Buffalo could only have two elite receivers to go against Bradbury and Slay versus possibly moving, Gabe Davis into the slot and having Avonte Maddox have to work on him. And the same goes for the Cowboys. Dallas is a good football team right now defensively, but they still are an offense you don't really expect to be competitive against some of the better defenses in the NFL because they only have one legit weapon right now at wide receiver, and that is CeeDee Lamb. You put OBJ in the Dallas Cowboys, and instantly it makes them way bigger of a threat and a lot harder for Philadelphia to go ahead and defend. I'm trying to make life easier for the Eagles as we expect them to be the number one seed and only have to win 2 playoff games in order to go ahead and make it to a Super Bowl. Now, I already know what you're saying. Thomas, comment section, we don't need Odell Beckham Jr. We're stacked at wide receiver. You're right, we are stacked at wide receiver, but really, we're stacked at 2 wide receiver positions. Philadelphia is not using Zach Pascal or Quez Watkins at all this year. They are complete non-factors at the wide receiver spot. Now, Pascal still makes an impact as a run blocker, and he would still continue to do that as a wide receiver with OBJ, but the argument that Quez Watkins was going to have a massive year this year has completely died as you look at the numbers right now. A.J. Brown, of course, is your number 1. Nothing would change there. He would stay as your number 1. Goddard is 2, but he's a tight end. Devontae Smith, who would still be very much a legit threat in this offense, is number 3 with 38 catches. Then Pascal has 8. Quez Watkins has 6. And it's not like they're getting a bunch of targets just are missing, because Pascal has 9 targets and 8 catches, and Quez Watkins has 11 targets and 6 catches. So you're telling me that you don't want Odell Beckham Jr. because you don't want to take targets away from Quez Watkins? What? You don't want to take the 11 targets through 7 games away from Quez Watkins? I like Quez. I thought Quez was going to be the burner this year. I thought he was going to be a lot bigger of a threat this year. It's not been the case. And if you want to argue that, well, Jalen's not throwing his way, you can't continue to make that argument week after week after week because he's not throwing his way because he's not getting open right now, and the reads are going more towards A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You put Odell Beckham Jr. in this offense, not only does Quez completely disappear, but you possibly elevate the over-the-middle abilities that OBJ has shown throughout his career as a really good receiver in the slot as well as on the outside. I know they don't need him. I'm not saying that they do, that they would be better with him, and you would keep Odell Beckham Jr. away from your biggest and most feared enemies in terms of the Dallas Cowboys, in terms of the San Francisco 49ers, in terms of Green Bay. That'd be a big signing for the Packers to give them some life here as we get to the month of December. I think this is honestly a legit look that Howie Roseman needs to go ahead and do as we get closer and closer to the start of December. And plus, you can offer OBJ money. They have enough money to go ahead and give him a fair contract. Nothing crazy. Couple of $1 million is totally doable. And the pitch to OBJ is, hey, the Rams are struggling right now. The Niners are still, barely at 500. Philadelphia, the Packers are struggling right now. You're going to come onto a 7-0 football team with a chance to make an impact and potentially go ahead and win back-to-back Super Bowls as he did with the Rams and this year with the Eagles. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not trying to go ahead and tell you that, this is a guarantee the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks, but Philadelphia should at least be in the conversation in order to potentially lure him away from some of our biggest threats and biggest enemies in both the NFC and potentially in a Super Bowl matchup with the Buffalo Bills. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into Eagles-Texans tonight. Very little hype around this one because Philadelphia is expected to win big. And if you guys feel good about that, another great DraftKings promo right now, a part of this channel. Look at this. Bet $5 on the Eagles Thursday night and get $200 if they win. So the link is down below in the description box. Takes you to this page right here on TFM. And then you just follow, the 4-step process to claim the offer if you feel like Philadelphia is going to win tonight. I think they're going to crush the Texans tonight. This is a great chance to go ahead and win some extra money. You just sign up by clicking here, select sign me up, register and deposit $5. I mean, $5+, that's it. Place the 5+ money line bet on the Eagles versus Texans tonight and get back $200 if you win. That's additional $200 to your winnings. So definitely jump in on this promo right now. The link is down below in the description box. Really fun with the DraftKings link on a show like this. And if you guys want to think that you think the Eagles are going to beat the Texans tonight, which all of you should, this is the link that you want to go ahead and bet with. All right, let's go ahead and jump into Eagles versus Texans. Couple of quick news and notes here from Bleeding Green Nation. Brandon Cooks is questionable, not necessarily with an injury, but more so because of the fact that he wasn't traded at the trade deadline. We'll get to him in a second. First, though, your two players who are out this week, obviously Jordan Davis and Josiah Scott. Not a real big shocker here, but Jordan Davis was placed on IR officially yesterday. That's one day before Thursday night's game. And BGN says, quote, Davis is reportedly set to miss 4 to 6 weeks due to a high ankle sprain. Eagles have not yet placed him on IR. Update, they did do that. If they do, which they did, put him on IR, he'd be eligible to be activated as soon as week 13, and that means you have a couple of weeks before he's going to be able to go. He's going to miss at least the Packer game. Is probably one of the big games that he would miss over the next 4. And so that means you're going to roll with Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave and Milton Williams and all the rest of those backup D tackles who are going to fill in admirably, I think, for Jordan Davis. You're going to feel the impact of him being gone the next couple of weeks. If he misses, say, the Tennessee Titan game, that's going to be a big one because of Derrick Henry. But tonight should not really be a big factor based on who you're playing with the Houston Texans. For the Texans, a couple of players who are officially out. A bunch of players on their, I'd say, injured list right now, but you have 5 players ruled out. Nico Collins, one of their starting wide receivers. DT Malik Collins, their backup safety and former Eagle Graylin Arnold, and backup linebacker Neville Hewitt, along with Justin McCray, are all expected to be out in this one. You will see Brandon Cooks out there most likely, but notice he is questionable today, and so maybe he could be upset about the trade deadline and sit out, but the odds of that happening because he'd lose a game check are very, very slim. You guys feel good about the Eagles, right? I think we can all give a thumbs up on this show if you think Philadelphia is going to do well tonight. I think it's going to be massive. I mean, you expect them to get to 30, and the question is, how many will you give up to Davis Mills? Another 31-13 game? 31-17? I think it's going to be huge. Let me know what you guys think down below. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to the Thomas Mott Show, because even though it's a Thursday game, still going to have shows on Friday, Saturday, maybe one on Sunday. Plenty of great Thomas Mott shows coming up here, so be sure to hit that red button. Okay, final little thing here. I always like the Bleeding Green Nation article where they, ask 5 questions with the enemy, and so they interview a Houston Texan beat writer and ask them about what the Texans are looking like and where they are at, and it's fun to go through these questions and give my own version of the answers. And so they say, quote, there seems to be some optimism about how Davis Mills played as a rookie. How's he looking in year 2, buying or selling him on the franchise? And honestly, Davis Mills has regressed, and the article mentions that here as well. You really thought he was going to take another step forward. That's kind of how, young quarterbacks work. They're not going to be perfect in year 1. What you want is to see a gradual progression. Show me that you're getting better. Jalen Hurts has clearly shown from, those first 4 games his rookie year at the end of the season, into year 2, 9 wins and a playoff berth, into a 7-0 start and MVP conversations. This is what he's doing, right? The line is trending upward. With Davis Mills, it was kind of like this, and now it's kind of turned on that roller coaster and starting to go down a little bit. And so I do think the Texans are going to be in play to draft one of the 2 best quarterbacks in the upcoming draft. Obviously, Will Levis out of Kentucky as well. I think Houston is going to be very much in on drafting a quarterback based on how Davis Mills has played. He's not been terrible. He's not trash. He can beat you. I mean, he's played a couple of nice games this year, but Philadelphia should be able to, 1, get after him, and then 2, force some turnovers, and that's kind of been their MO this season. Next one is fair to say Lovie Smith will be one and done. If so, do Texans fans want to realistically replace him? And they will revisit hiring Eagles DC Jonathan Gannon. I do think this will be a one and done for Lovie Smith. Houston needs a total rebuild, hence why we mentioned quarterback possibly in their draft over the next couple of months when you get to April. I do think that Gannon could be an option. I think a lot of Eagle fans wouldn't take Jonathan Gannon because we've seen kind of the hard-headed, scheming and play calling in the past, but he's very well respected around the league, and I think he will be an eventual head coach of the National Football League. I think Shane Steichen is also going to be very much up for a head coaching job, especially if the Eagles keep winning as our offensive coordinator. Here's a good one here. What is the Texans' biggest strength? How should they be attacking the Eagles? Dameon Pierce and their rushing attack is pretty good. They're not bad so far this year. It's definitely one of their greatest strengths in terms of trying to play keep away. That's how you beat Philadelphia. That's how you beat all the good teams in the NFL. You try and play keep away, and so you're going to see them try to run the football. If I'm Philadelphia, their receivers plus Brandon Cooks don't really scare me. You play press man as they've done against some of the worst teams so far that they played this year. You play press man, you give them 7-man boxes, and you force them to throw the football and beat you, and you hope that Davis Mills doesn't have the game of the year for him as a young quarterback. Texans' biggest weakness in terms of what Philadelphia should look to exploit, that is their defense against the rushing game. I mean, the Texans had more than 300 yards against them, and that was when they knew the run was coming, as the article says here. 200 yards on the ground for Derrick Henry last week. Big Miles Sanders night. Big, maybe Kenneth Gainwell night. You see some read option with Jalen Hurts. It's Thursday. It's a short week. You like teams that can run the football in that one. I think Philadelphia is going to run all over them. Philadelphia, again, 13.5-point favorites according to DraftKings. With your score prediction, I'm saying 31-17, and that would mean if you want to go ahead and bet Philadelphia on the money line using my DraftKings link down below, you are probably going to hit that because it might even be bigger than 13.5, which is pretty darn good. So jump in on the betting game, again, with the DraftKings link. Okay, plenty of stuff coming up on tomorrow's show. We will, of course, react to not only the Eagles' hopeful big win, 8-0. We'll also do our weekly reaction video where I look at some of what the national sports figures are saying from ESPN and Fox Sports and all the rest, and we break it all down and play it for you on the show, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for that one. I'm Thomas Mott. Let's go 8-0. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.